History is full of moments that defy explanation, events so strange, so unsettling, they linger in the shadows of memory. Entire towns vanish without a trace, ships disappear into the fog, and whispers of the unexplained echo through ancient ruins. What forces were at work? Were these mere coincidences, or something far darker, hidden beneath the surface of what we call reality? Tonight, we step into the unknown, uncovering the most terrifying mysteries history has never fully explained. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the chilling secrets that time itself cannot erase. Far beyond the familiar coastlines of the Mediterranean, where waves shimmer under the early morning sun and fog drifts silently over hidden coves, ancient mariners once whispered of a land that existed only in fragments of their records. The Phoenicians, masterful sailors and traders from the eastern Mediterranean, left behind cryptic inscriptions and fragmentary accounts of a lost island, a place both tantalizingly real and impossibly elusive. Its name, partially eroded by time, appears in several clay tablets and coastal maps dating back to the first millennium BC. Yet, despite these references, the island's location remains obscured, shrouded in mystery and speculation. Descriptions vary, but recurring motifs emerge: a lush terrain, fertile soil, and an abundance of freshwater springs. Some fragments speak of towering cliffs and hidden harbors, while others suggest sacred groves and temples dedicated to gods long forgotten. These records, while sparse, hint at a settlement that may have flourished as a waypoint for Phoenician traders navigating the Mediterranean, connecting distant shores from the Levant to the far reaches of North Africa and beyond. Yet, no definitive archaeological evidence has surfaced to confirm the existence of such an island. Its very reality hangs on the precarious line between history and legend. Mainstream scholars often approach these accounts cautiously. The inconsistencies in the records, combined with the lack of physical proof, have led some to propose that the lost island may have been misidentified coastal regions, or even islands that have since vanished due to rising seas or geological changes. The Mediterranean is known for its dynamic landscapes, where earthquakes and tsunamis have reshaped coastlines throughout millennia. Could it be that the island described by the Phoenicians was swallowed by the sea, leaving behind only tantalizing hints in clay inscriptions? The possibility, though unsettling, is not beyond the realm of plausibility. Other researchers, however, allow for more speculative interpretations. Some suggest that the island may have been a cultural or religious sanctuary rather than a conventional settlement, a place whose significance was preserved in myth and oral tradition long after its disappearance. Certain Phoenician texts allude to rituals performed under celestial alignments, hinting that this island may have been central to navigational or religious practices, a focal point whose precise location was intentionally cloaked to protect its sanctity. Such theories, while impossible to verify fully, illuminate the way ancient societies blended the tangible and the symbolic in their understanding of the world. The mystery grows when we consider the island's connections, or possible connections, to other regions. Some maritime routes suggest a link between the Phoenicians and the broader Mediterranean network, including ports along the coast of modern-day Palestine, Cyprus, and North Africa. Could this lost island have been a critical waypoint, a hidden node in the vast network of trade and communication that defined the ancient world? And if so, why does it leave so few traces today? Even modern attempts at underwater archaeology have yet to yield definitive answers, though sonar mapping and sediment analysis continue to probe the submerged contours of the Mediterranean. What strikes the imagination most is not merely the island itself, but the questions it raises about human memory and history. How much of what we believe to be lost is truly gone, and how much survives only in fragmentary whispers? The Phoenicians, despite their renowned skill and meticulous record-keeping, left us with tantalizing gaps, reminders that history is not always a linear narrative, but a mosaic of what was remembered, forgotten, and deliberately hidden. Perhaps the lost island was never meant to be rediscovered, or perhaps it awaits the careful eye of a future archaeologist who can piece together these scattered clues. As the Mediterranean sun dips lower over the horizon, casting a golden glow across waves that have carried ships for millennia, one cannot help but wonder, was this island a place of flesh and stone, or did it exist only in the imagination and reverence of those who sailed its waters? The fragments speak, yet they do not answer. The island lingers, suspended between history and legend, a puzzle that continues to beckon those willing to trace its shadow across time. As we leave behind the fog-shrouded waters where the Phoenicians once sailed, the mysteries of the ancient Mediterranean shift from the sea to the land, from vanished islands to silent witnesses etched in metal. In the hills and valleys of the Levant, fragments of history endure in the most unexpected forms. Copper tablets, weathered by time yet remarkably preserved, bearing inscriptions that defy comprehension. These tablets, discovered in scattered archaeological sites across what is today Palestine and neighboring regions, carry characters unlike any known script, their language, if indeed it is a language, still unidentified, resisting the grasp of scholars for centuries. The tablets are small, often no more than a hand's length, but the weight of their mystery is immense. Each bears rows of intricate symbols, etched with painstaking precision, their surfaces glinting in torchlight or under the sterile glow of modern laboratory lamps. Some symbols resemble familiar Phoenician or early Canaanite characters, yet many are utterly alien, forming sequences that do not correspond to any known phonetic or semantic system. The question lingers: were these the words of a forgotten people, a code meant to conceal knowledge, or a ceremonial script whose meaning was symbolic rather than practical? Archaeologists have attempted to contextualize the tablets through carbon dating and metallurgical analysis. Most place their origin between the late 2nd millennium BC and early 1st millennium BC, a period of intense cultural and commercial activity in the Levant. During this time, city-states along the coast and interior, including regions within modern-day Palestine, flourished as hubs of trade, diplomacy, and religious practice. Could the tablets have been records of transactions, treaties, or sacred texts? Mainstream hypotheses lean toward ceremonial or administrative use, but no definitive translation has yet been possible. Some scholars point to the possibility of a local dialect or lost writing system, unique to a small community whose history left few other traces. Others propose that the tablets may encode information in a deliberately obscure way, messages intended only for initiates, priests, or rulers. There are those who suggest that the writing is not linguistic at all, but symbolic or mnemonic, a record-keeping system of abstract ideas, cosmology, or astronomical observations. Each hypothesis, though tantalizing, remains speculative, highlighting both the ingenuity of the people who crafted these artifacts and the gaps in our understanding. Beyond the technical questions of translation, the tablets provoke deeper contemplation. Why was this script so carefully etched in copper, a durable and costly medium, rather than on clay or papyrus? What compelled these ancient scribes to inscribe their messages in metal that would endure long after their cities and palaces had crumbled? Perhaps the answer lies not only in practicality, but in reverence, a desire to preserve knowledge, ritual, or memory against the erosions of time. The mystery deepens when one considers the broader cultural and geopolitical context. During the same era, trade networks extended across the eastern Mediterranean, linking Palestine, Cyprus, Anatolia, and the islands beyond. Could these tablets have been part of a wider, now lost tradition of writing or record-keeping, shared among distant communities? And if so, why has no parallel script survived in neighboring regions? The silence of the archaeological record amplifies the enigma, leaving us with tantalizing fragments, but no full story. As the sun sets over the rolling hills and ancient ruins of the Levant, one cannot help but imagine the hands that etched these symbols, guided by knowledge we may never fully recover. The copper tablets speak, yet their message remains locked, waiting for a future discovery or a breakthrough that may finally illuminate their purpose. Until then, the language on these ancient metals endures as a reminder that history is never complete, and that even in the age of modern scholarship, some secrets of the past remain as inscrutable as the depths of the sea. From the silent inscribed copper tablets of the Levant, our journey turns once more toward the open landscapes, to the high plateaus and river valleys where the Assyrian Empire maintained its vast borders. Here, at the edges of civilization, vigilant watchmen recorded not only the movements of armies and traders, but also phenomena that defied their understanding. Among these meticulous chronicles, one entry stands out, a description of strange, moving lights seen across the night sky, a vision so vivid it was etched carefully into clay tablets for future generations to witness. The location is striking. Rolling plains bordered by rugged mountains, stretching toward the fertile valleys of what is now Palestine, where the night sky stretches uninterrupted, brilliant with stars. The Assyrian border watchers, trained to observe with unwavering attention, reported lights that moved erratically, appearing suddenly and vanishing without trace. Some were described as flickering orbs, glowing with colors that seemed to shift like molten metal. Others reportedly followed deliberate paths, darting across the heavens in ways that did not correspond to known celestial bodies. Mainstream historians generally interpret these accounts cautiously. It is possible that the watchers were observing natural phenomena, meteor showers, distant lightning, or unusual atmospheric reflections. Some suggest the movements may have been caused by bioluminescent insects, mirages, or even early experiments with signal fires. Each of these explanations, though plausible, leaves gaps, particularly when multiple, independent reports describe similar patterns across different regions and nights. Could these lights have been rare natural events that modern science has only begun to explain, or something else entirely? More speculative interpretations linger in the margins of the historical record. Some researchers propose that the lights could represent unknown atmospheric phenomena, or even early sightings of objects in motion beyond human comprehension. The Assyrian observers, diligent and precise, took care to describe their measurements, direction, and timing, which implies that what they witnessed was not merely a trick of the eye. Could it be that these moving lights were markers of cosmic events, signals from distant lands, or a coded warning woven into the fabric of night itself? The mystery deepens when one considers the broader cultural and symbolic context. Light in Assyrian literature often carried spiritual or omenic significance. Unexplained lights could be interpreted as messages from the gods or portents of events to come. Were these border watchers simply recording what they saw, or were they also capturing a moment in a world where the divine and natural overlapped in ways we scarcely comprehend? The line between observation and interpretation blurs, leaving us to wonder what was literal and what was symbolic. The recorded sightings also raise questions about continuity across time and geography. Similar accounts appear in neighboring regions, including coastal cities along Palestine's shores, where sailors reported glowing objects moving above or on the water, often in patterns inconsistent with fire or human activity. Could these disparate sightings point to a phenomenon observed over centuries, crossing cultures and landscapes, yet still leaving no definitive trace for modern science to study? As the night falls over the ancient plains, one can almost imagine the border watchman, cloaked against the chill, eyes fixed on a horizon that seemed both infinite and intimate. The moving lights flickered and glimmered in silence, leaving behind only the written word and the memory of wonder. What were these lights, and why did they appear only to those who watched with extraordinary vigilance? The Assyrian tablets offer no answers, only careful observations that continue to provoke thought, curiosity, and a lingering sense of awe. The phenomenon, recorded so long ago, remains as enigmatic today as it did in the eyes of those ancient observers. And so, the question endures. What secrets of the skies did the Assyrians glimpse, and what truths remain hidden above the lands of the Levant, waiting for another patient eye to discover them? From the shadowed plains of Assyria, where moving lights once danced across the night sky, our journey now ascends into the jagged highlands of eastern Anatolia, the heartland of the ancient Urartian kingdom. Here, amid windswept plateaus and towering basalt cliffs, the remnants of a once mighty civilization cling to the mountains like whispers of a forgotten past. It is in this austere landscape that archaeologists uncovered a tomb built for a warrior king, a monument intended to endure across centuries. Yet upon opening it, they found only silence, a chamber empty of the treasures and remains one would expect. The tomb itself is a testament to Urartian craftsmanship. Massive stone blocks fitted with precise care, bronze fittings glinting faintly even after millennia, and walls etched with symbols of power, divine favor, and conquest. Normally, such tombs contain the remains of kings, attendants, and ritual objects intended to accompany them into the afterlife. Yet here, the chamber stands void, the silence profound, almost deliberate. How could a tomb so carefully prepared be found empty? Historians have proposed several explanations, grounded in the tangible realities of the past. Grave robbers, drawn by the king's wealth, could have stripped the tomb long ago, leaving no evidence beyond the bare walls. Natural disasters, earthquakes, landslides, or floods might have disturbed the burial, scattering its contents or forcing relocation. Or perhaps political upheaval led to the body's removal, as new rulers sought to erase the legacy of a predecessor. Each of these scenarios is plausible, yet none fully accounts for the meticulous construction designed for permanence, nor for the enduring aura of mystery that hangs over the site. More enigmatic theories suggest a deliberate emptiness, a ritual choice or symbolic act. Could the king himself have vanished under extraordinary circumstances, leaving a tomb that serves more as a monument than a resting place? Some speculate that the burial was intentionally left vacant to honor a promise, a prophecy, or a celestial alignment, an extraordinary act that the living inscribed in stone and bronze for eternity. The tomb's orientation, aligned with distant peaks and specific solar paths, hints at astronomical significance, echoing a worldview in which kingship, the divine, and the cosmos were inextricably intertwined. The empty tomb also raises broader questions about memory, power, and the passage of history. Urartu was a kingdom of warriors, traders, and builders, whose influence extended across the Highlands into regions that today include Palestine's northern neighbors. How much of what we understand about this civilization is shaped by what survived, and how much is lost to time, looted or scattered beyond recognition? The absence of the king's remains transforms the tomb from a historical record into a riddle, prompting reflection on the impermanence of human endeavors and the mysteries that endure even where we expect certainty. Standing before the chamber today, one can almost feel the king's presence in its emptiness. The walls speak of power, the craftsmanship of legacy, and the quiet insistence of history that some answers are never given freely. Was the warrior king moved, erased, or never interred at all? And if his body is elsewhere, what secrets might it still hold about the rituals, politics, and beliefs of Urartu? In the silence of that empty tomb, history and mystery converge, leaving us with questions that refuse resolution and an enduring sense of awe at what remains hidden, even in the lands we think we know. From the silent emptiness of the Urartian tomb, where absence spoke louder than any discovery, our journey turns southward across deserts that have witnessed empires rise and vanish. Here, in the heart of Arabia, archaeologists uncovered a shrine unlike any other, an ancient sanctuary, isolated on a windswept plateau, its walls and floor mysteriously coated with a dark, glass-like substance that glinted in the relentless sunlight. The black surface was smooth, reflective, almost unnatural, giving the shrine an otherworldly presence amidst the barren sands. It was as if the desert itself had hardened into an eternal mirror, preserving secrets that no ordinary stone could contain. The shrine, modest in size yet striking in design, exhibits architectural features consistent with early Arabian religious practices, dating roughly to the first millennium BC. Pillars carved with geometric motifs, small alcoves for offerings, and ceremonial platforms suggest it was a place of ritual significance. Yet the most puzzling element remains the black glass covering. It is unlike obsidian, basalt, or any known local mineral. Laboratory analysis shows it to be a vitrified layer, but its origin is unclear. How could such a large, uniform surface form in this remote desert? And why was it applied to a sacred space? Mainstream archaeologists consider several plausible explanations. One suggests that the black layer resulted from intense, prolonged fires, perhaps ritual in nature, that melted the upper surface of the stone. Another points to ancient volcanic activity in the region, though the nearest volcanic formations lie miles away, making this less likely. Yet even these explanations struggle to account for the precision of the coating, which seems intentionally applied to every horizontal surface within the shrine. Speculative theories hint at something more extraordinary. Could this black glass have been a product of unknown technological skill, lost to history, perhaps intended to harness light, heat, or energy in ways we cannot yet understand? Some researchers suggest the reflective surface might have been symbolic, a way to mirror the heavens during sacred ceremonies, creating an illusion of connection between earth and sky. Others propose that the vitrification was meant to preserve or protect whatever was stored within the shrine, turning the sacred space into a cryptic archive of spiritual or cultural knowledge. The desert itself adds to the sense of mystery. Isolated from trade routes and settlements, this shrine would have been difficult to access, perhaps reserved for select individuals or secret rituals. Travelers and local tribes speak of strange reflections and flickers of light across the black surfaces, phenomena that modern scientists cannot fully explain. Was this intentional, a ritual designed to awe and intimidate, or merely the byproduct of materials reacting to centuries of sun and wind? Standing at the edge of the plateau today, the shrine appears both alien and familiar, a paradox of human craftsmanship and natural forces. Its dark, gleaming surfaces capture the imagination, provoking questions that remain unanswered. Who built this place, and why? What purpose did the black glass serve, and what did those who worshipped here hope to communicate with the heavens above? Even as scholars continue to investigate, the desert keeps its secrets. The black glass whispers of rituals lost to time, of knowledge and beliefs that have no living witnesses. And so, the shrine endures as both a marvel and a mystery, inviting us to ponder what ancient hands achieved and what truths might still lie hidden beneath the endless sands of Arabia. From the burning sands of Arabia, where black glass shrines reflect the sun and whisper of ancient rites, our journey moves westward across the Mediterranean to the rugged hills of southern Iberia. Here, where cliffs rise sharply above the fertile valleys and mist often curls over hidden ravines, legends speak of a fortress that once commanded the landscape, a hilltop citadel of stone and timber, now vanished from maps, leaving little more than traces of foundations and fragmented walls. The Vanishing Hill Fortress, as local chronicles describe it, seems to exist in memory as much as in reality, its presence felt yet frustratingly elusive. Archaeologists first identified remnants of walls and terraces atop a remote hill, dating from the first millennium BC, a period when Iberian tribes fortified their settlements against both neighbors and invaders. Stone foundations, carefully leveled terraces, and defensive ditches suggest a structure of strategic importance, commanding both trade routes and fertile plains below. Yet when researchers returned to excavate the site systematically, much of the fortress appeared to have disappeared, as though swallowed by the land itself. Earth and rock had shifted, walls had crumbled, and in some areas, no trace remained at all. How could a structure so substantial seemingly vanish without a record of destruction? Mainstream explanations focus on natural processes. Earthquakes, landslides, and centuries of erosion could have displaced the upper layers of the hill, obscuring walls and terraces once visible to the eye. Human activity may have contributed as well. Later populations could have quarried stone for new buildings, repurposing materials and erasing the fortress from memory. Yet even these accounts struggle to explain contemporary references and maps, some dating to the early first millennium BC, which depict a fully intact hilltop stronghold. How could a fortress disappear so completely, leaving behind only fragmentary hints in both the landscape and written accounts? More speculative theories linger at the margins of history. Some historians suggest that the fortress may have been deliberately abandoned and partially destroyed in a ritualized act, meant to erase its existence while preserving its memory and legend. Others propose that shifting soil and vegetation may have concealed the citadel so effectively that it seems to vanish and reappear depending on seasonal light, perspective, or erosion cycles. Could it be that the Vanishing Hill Fortress was engineered in such a way that its visibility was controlled, a deliberate play on perception for both allies and enemies? The fortress also raises questions about the culture and priorities of Iberian societies. Why invest in a citadel that could disappear? What does this say about their relationship with the land, their strategic thinking, or their spiritual beliefs? Could the fortress itself have held symbolic significance, a sentinel not only against human foes, but against time, intended to disappear and re-emerge in cycles known only to its builders? Standing today on the slopes of that remote hill, the mind struggles to reconcile myth and evidence. The ruins, the scattered stones, and the gentle contours of the terrain hint at a place that once teemed with life, strategy, and human ambition, yet eludes our full comprehension. How much of the fortress's story has been lost to erosion, to human hands, or to the passage of centuries? And what might remain hidden beneath soil and rock, waiting for the careful eye of a future explorer to uncover its secrets? In the quiet of the Iberian hills, the Vanishing Hill Fortress reminds us that history is not always fixed, and that some constructions, no matter how substantial, are destined to hover between presence and absence, leaving behind questions that continue to haunt both scholars and wanderers alike. From the windswept hills of southern Iberia, where fortresses can vanish into legend, our journey turns eastward to the sun-drenched coasts of the Mediterranean, where early Greek colonies once thrived. Here, among the whitewashed buildings and narrow streets of an archaeological site along the southern coast, explorers discovered an astonishing secret hidden beneath the ground. A network of tunnels, long forgotten, carved into the earth with precision and care, extending for hundreds of meters beneath the ruins of the colony. The very notion of their existence evokes questions of purpose, secrecy, and the unknown. The tunnels, narrow and winding, are reinforced with stone and mortar, their ceilings low but consistent, suggesting deliberate engineering rather than natural formation. Some chambers feature carved niches, perhaps intended for storage or ritual objects, while others open onto small, circular spaces that might have served as meeting points or defensive positions. Archaeological evidence dates the construction to roughly the 6th century BC, a period when Greek settlers established trading posts and small colonies along the Mediterranean coast. Yet, despite this connection, the function of these subterranean corridors remains enigmatic. Mainstream interpretations suggest practical explanations. The tunnels may have served as storage for food and supplies, offering protection from seasonal heat and raiding parties. Others propose they were escape routes or secret passages designed to safeguard leaders during times of conflict. Yet the complexity and extent of the network surpass what would be necessary for mere utility. The meticulous craftsmanship implies a deeper significance, an intentional investment of time and labor for reasons we cannot yet fully discern. Speculative theories open the imagination further. Could these tunnels have been used for religious ceremonies, hidden shrines, or the storage of objects deemed too sacred for public view? Some suggest that the winding paths and hidden chambers may have been designed to disorient outsiders, creating a labyrinthine defense system known only to a select few. Others propose even more mysterious possibilities: astronomical alignments within the tunnels, secret communication networks, or ritualized journeys intended to prepare initiates for spiritual or civic duties. The tunnel's discovery also raises questions about the broader cultural and political landscape of early Greek colonies. Was the construction of such elaborate subterranean networks a response to local threats, or did it reflect a symbolic worldview in which the underworld or hidden spaces held spiritual significance? Were these tunnels entirely practical, or did they serve as a bridge between the visible city and unseen forces, a conduit for the sacred as much as the strategic? Walking through the dim corridors today, the air cool and still, one can feel the weight of centuries pressing from the stone walls. The faint echoes of footsteps, long since gone, and the subtle scent of earth and mortar create an atmosphere of quiet tension. Every corner, every niche, invites questions. Who built these tunnels, and why? What knowledge, treasure, or ritual was concealed beneath the sunlit streets above? And if so much has survived in hidden chambers, what else might remain undiscovered, buried beneath layers of earth and time? In their silence, the tunnels beneath this early Greek colony remind us that history is never fully visible, that civilizations leave traces in both the seen and unseen, and that some mysteries endure precisely because they are hidden. They whisper to us across the centuries, urging patient observation and careful thought, and leaving us with the profound sense that even beneath familiar landscapes, the past can remain shadowed, secret, and alive with questions. From the hidden corridors of early Greek colonies, where secrets lie beneath the streets and shadows of history, our journey turns southward along the sun-scorched coasts of the Red Sea, where ancient sailors once navigated treacherous waters and mapped lands still unfamiliar to the wider world. Among these tales emerges a singularly strange phenomenon, a cavern described repeatedly in maritime logs and oral accounts, known to seafarers as the Breathing Cavern. It is said to lie along jagged cliffs where the desert meets the sea, a cavern whose air seems alive, inhaling and exhaling in rhythm with the tides, as if the earth itself draws breath. The entrance, often half submerged at high tide, is narrow and unassuming, carved naturally from limestone over millennia. Sailors describe the cavern's interior as both inviting and unnerving, a winding chamber of stone that opens into vaulted ceilings, echoing with the sighs of wind and water. In daylight, sunlight filters through fissures in the rock, illuminating walls streaked with mineral deposits and layers of salt. Yet it is the sound that captivates and terrifies, a deep, resonant pulsing, like the heartbeat of the world beneath their feet. Historical records indicate that Red Sea trade routes were active as early as the 2nd millennium BC, with mariners from Arabia, the Levant, and beyond charting these coasts. Accounts of the cavern appear sporadically in logbooks and diaries, yet none provide a definitive explanation. Some suggest that the cavern's breathing is a natural phenomenon, tidal movements pushing air in and out of sealed chambers, or underground vents releasing trapped gases. Geologists confirm that such airflows can occur, yet the consistency and intensity described by sailors, combined with reports of strange light patterns and echoes, resist simple explanation. Speculative interpretations open further avenues of intrigue. Some scholars propose that the cavern was known to local tribes as a sacred space, a place where the land itself communicated with the people, and that sailors may have perceived its spiritual resonance through sound and sensation. Others suggest that the cavern may conceal subterranean water channels, or even access points to hidden chambers beneath the cliffs, used for storage, smuggling, or ritual purposes. There are accounts of objects seemingly moving within the cavern without explanation, and of sudden gusts that appear to anticipate human presence. Could these be artifacts of air currents and geology, or remnants of human manipulation, ancient and long forgotten? The Red Sea itself, with its sharp tides, strong winds, and shifting currents, adds layers of danger and mystery. Few modern explorers have entered the cavern, citing both safety and the preservation of its fragile environment. Those who have returned with stories of disorientation, the sensation of time bending, echoes that mimic human speech, and a rhythmic pulsing that seems almost conscious. The cavern challenges the boundary between the natural and the inexplicable, asking observers to question what they understand about the world beneath the earth and sea. Standing at its threshold today, one can hear the cavern breathing long before sighting its interior, a reminder that some landscapes carry their own life, independent of human comprehension. Why does the air move as it does, and how long has this rhythm persisted? Is it the work of geology, or does it hint at something deeper, a hidden system of forces we have yet to grasp? The breathing cavern continues to defy simple answers, whispering to all who approach that the world holds more mysteries than maps can capture, and that even in well-traveled seas, some wonders remain unseen, waiting for the patient and the curious to listen carefully. From the coastal mysteries of the Red Sea, where the breathing cavern exhales its ancient secrets, our exploration shifts northwest across the Mediterranean, where the waves have long carried more than trade. They have carried enigma. Here, along the western Mediterranean trade routes, historians and archaeologists have puzzled over a series of missing convoys, laden not with gold or spices, but with tin, a metal vital to the bronze that shaped ancient civilizations. These shipments, critical to the economies of early Mediterranean societies, vanished repeatedly, leaving records of departure but no trace of arrival, as though swallowed by the sea itself. Tin, sourced from mines as far afield as Iberia, Sardinia, and Cornwall, was indispensable to the production of bronze tools, weapons, and ceremonial objects. Maritime records from the first millennium BC describe carefully organized convoys, sometimes comprising dozens of vessels bound for major trading centers in what is now Palestine, North Africa, and the Italian peninsula. Yet countless logs mention convoys that simply disappeared, with no survivors, no wreckage, and no plausible explanation beyond the unpredictability of storms and piracy. The sheer regularity of these losses suggests patterns that are as intriguing as they are unsettling. Mainstream historians often cite natural hazards, violent Mediterranean storms, hidden reefs, or shifting sandbanks capable of engulfing ships whole. Piracy and raiding also played a role, particularly during times of regional instability. Yet these factors alone cannot account for the scale and frequency of the losses. Some convoys vanished without warning, in calm waters, under clear skies. The sheer concentration of disappearances along particular stretches of the western Mediterranean hints at something more, an unknown hazard, or perhaps a strategic secret hidden from the surviving records of the time. Speculative theories invite further intrigue. Could there have been underwater currents or geological phenomena, creating whirlpools or sudden tidal surges that swallowed entire convoys? Some suggest deliberate human intervention, such as rival states seeking to control the bronze trade by intercepting and erasing shipments. Others propose that these convoys were guided along hidden, secretive channels known only to experienced mariners, with missing records resulting from intentional obfuscation or the destruction of evidence. Even whispers of inexplicable maritime phenomena, disappearing fogs, sudden storms localized over narrow passages, or lights beneath the waves, have persisted in coastal lore, passed down by sailors from generation to generation. The mystery of the missing tin convoys illuminates the precariousness of ancient economies and the fragility of human ambition. Entire societies depended on the steady flow of metal, yet time and tide seemed to conspire against them. Archaeologists searching for shipwrecks have discovered some tin cargoes, scattered and corroded, but many remain lost, hidden beneath centuries of sediment, a testament to both the power of the sea and the limitations of human knowledge. Standing today on the Mediterranean coast, one can imagine the convoys setting sail with hope and purpose, only to vanish into the unknown, leaving nothing behind but the faintest echoes in logs and maps. Why did these shipments disappear with such regularity, and what might still lie beneath the waves? Are the lost cargoes merely the result of nature and circumstance, or do they hint at forces, natural or human, that we have yet to fully understand? The missing tin convoys continue to haunt our understanding of the ancient Mediterranean, a silent reminder that even in the most documented eras, mysteries endure, waiting for those patient enough to search and persistent enough to wonder. From the bustling trade routes of the Western Mediterranean, where entire tin convoys vanished beneath restless waves, our journey now leads northward to the highlands of the South Caucasus, to the waters of Lake Sevan. Here, along the lake's serene shoreline, explorers and divers have uncovered something both beguiling and perplexing. Circular ruins, submerged and partially hidden beneath the gentle waves. These formations, perfectly round and meticulously constructed, hint at human activity that predates recorded history, yet the purpose, origin, and fate of those who built them remain shrouded in mystery. The ruins consist of concentric stone walls, forming what appears to be a series of circular enclosures. Some are small, barely more than a few meters across, while others stretch impressively, suggesting communal or ceremonial use. The stones are carefully placed, their alignment precise, resisting the chaos of natural erosion. Portions of the structures are now underwater, a testament to rising lake levels or shifting terrain over the centuries. Local legends speak of lost villages, sunken temples, or sacred sites deliberately submerged, but none provide concrete answers. Archaeological studies indicate that the area around Lake Sevan was inhabited as early as the 2nd millennium BC, with communities relying on fishing, agriculture, and trade along the surrounding highlands. Yet the circular ruins do not resemble typical dwellings or fortifications of known civilizations in the region. Some scholars suggest that they may have served as ritual or ceremonial sites, designed to mark sacred spaces or to host gatherings that connected the community to the spiritual world. The water's presence adds another layer of intrigue, as if the lake itself was part of the design, a living boundary between the mundane and the mystical. Speculative theories deepen the sense of wonder. Could the circular formations have been astronomical observatories, aligned with the sun, moon, or stars to track seasonal changes? Might they have been defensive constructions, deliberately concealed by water to protect treasures or knowledge from intruders? Even stranger hypotheses propose that the submerged ruins were part of a ritualized flood, intentionally drowned in a symbolic act of transition or purification. Modern divers report an eerie stillness beneath the surface, a sensation of walking through spaces once alive with purpose, now silenced by centuries of water and sediment. The circular ruins beneath Lake Sevan also raise profound questions about our understanding of ancient human ingenuity. Who designed these structures, and why select such a precarious location, half submerged and vulnerable to the changing lake? Were they intended to endure, or were they created as temporary markers to vanish beneath the water at a preordained time? The patterns of the ruins, regular yet enigmatic, resist easy classification, defying both practical and ritual explanations. Standing at the lake's edge, the water glinting in the afternoon sun, it is possible to imagine the lives that intersected with these ruins, the hands that placed each stone, the ceremonies that might have unfolded, and the slow descent of structures into quiet obscurity. What remains hidden beneath the waves may forever elude us, yet the very act of discovery invites reflection. What messages or knowledge did these circular formations once hold, and how much of human history lies submerged, awaiting patient observation? Lake Sevan's hidden circles remind us that even in the most tranquil settings, mysteries endure, silently inviting curiosity, careful study, and wonder. From the tranquil waters of Lake Sevan, where circular ruins rest half-submerged beneath the shoreline, our investigation turns westward to the rugged highlands of Thrace, a land of dense forests, jagged peaks, and valleys carved by time. Here, scattered across hidden slopes and rocky outcrops, explorers and local villagers have uncovered something unsettling. Massive stone faces, deliberately buried, their features partially visible through earth and moss, gazing eternally from beneath the mountains as if keeping silent vigil. The faces vary in size, some barely larger than life, others towering several meters, their expressions solemn, enigmatic, and arresting. Chiseled from local stone, they are striking in detail. The sharp lines of a nose, the curve of lips, the deep hollows of eyes that seem almost alive. Archaeologists dating the site suggest origins as early as the first millennium BC, though the precise culture responsible remains a matter of speculation. Unlike monumental sculptures meant for display, these faces were intentionally concealed, partially buried, suggesting a purpose beyond mere commemoration or artistic expression. Mainstream theories propose ritualistic or protective functions. Some suggest the faces were guardians, meant to watch over sacred grounds or burial sites hidden in the mountains. Others argue they could have been symbolic markers, conveying messages or serving as boundary markers for ancient tribal territories. Yet the deliberate burial adds layers of ambiguity. Why hide such painstakingly carved figures from sight? What message or power lay in keeping them half-concealed, known only to those who sought them? Speculative interpretations invite further wonder. Could these buried visages have been intended to channel spiritual energy, connecting the living with ancestral spirits or deities of the mountains? Some researchers propose that the faces were part of initiation rituals, revealed only to those deemed worthy. Local legends speak of restless mountain spirits and warnings of misfortune for those who disturb the earth, implying an oral memory of the sacred and mysterious function of these hidden sculptures. Others entertain more extraordinary ideas. Might the faces mark sites of lost knowledge, or act as a warning system, aligned with celestial events, their positions communicating messages across vast distances in ways now forgotten? The geography of Thrace amplifies the intrigue. The mountains, often shrouded in mist and shadow, create natural concealment, while the slopes themselves seem to echo the stone faces' silent gaze. Modern explorers report an eerie stillness around the buried sculptures. The wind carries a low hum through the trees, shadows shift across features in uncanny ways, and the sheer presence of the faces seems to induce a palpable sense of being watched. It is an atmosphere that blends history and imagination, leaving observers unsure whether what they sense is natural or something more profound. Standing amid these mountains today, one can almost feel the weight of centuries pressing from the stones, the deliberate effort of those who buried them, and the stories that may have been lost to time. What compelled ancient hands to carve such lifelike faces, only to hide them beneath earth and rock? Were they protectors, warnings, or relics of rituals whose meaning has vanished? The stone faces of Thrace remain a haunting testament to human ingenuity and mystery, their half-buried gaze reminding us that history is not always meant to be fully revealed, and that the mountains themselves may still hold secrets we are only beginning to glimpse. From the silent, watchful mountains of Thrace, where stone faces lie half-buried beneath moss and earth, our investigation moves southward, tracing the shimmering waters of the eastern Mediterranean, where ancient mariners navigated treacherous coasts and traded across cultures. Along this stretch, archaeologists have uncovered a haunting enigma, a Phoenician coastal outpost, meticulously built, strategically located, and abruptly abandoned. Yet there are no signs of fire, no evidence of enemy siege, and no traces of battle. Only a city frozen mid-motion, as if its inhabitants vanished overnight. The outpost, situated on a rocky promontory overlooking the sea, was modest but sophisticated. Stone houses cluster around narrow streets, storage facilities are aligned along the harbor, and workshops reveal traces of metallurgy, pottery, and weaving. Archaeologists date the settlement to the 1st millennium BC, a time when Phoenician traders were renowned for their maritime prowess, linking ports from the Levant to North Africa. Yet despite its significance, the outpost bears marks of sudden abandonment. Meals left uneaten, tools scattered as if their owners intended to return, and doors left open to the elements. Mainstream theories often point to environmental catastrophe. Earthquakes are common in the region, and tsunamis have historically devastated coastal settlements. Some suggest that a rapid landslide or a sudden shift in the rocky cliffs may have forced evacuation, leaving little trace of destruction. Others posit that an epidemic or sudden shortage of resources prompted residents to flee, their footprints fading into time. While plausible, none fully account for the absence of looting or signs of prolonged human departure. In most abandoned settlements, some evidence of scavenging or decay remains, but here, the outpost seems untouched, preserved almost eerily. Speculative interpretations add further intrigue. Could the sudden disappearance be linked to a clandestine raid, carried out with such precision that nothing was taken, and no destruction left behind? Some researchers entertain the idea of unexplained natural phenomena, a sudden gas release, a mysterious flood from underground channels, or other geophysical events that could drive inhabitants to flee instantaneously. Local legends, passed down through centuries of coastal communities, speak of vanishing towns, places where the sea and wind claim both people and memory, leaving only stone as witness. The geography itself intensifies the mystery. The outpost sits on a promontory exposed to both sea and sky, a liminal space between land and water, where natural hazards and human activity converge. The harbor, once bustling with Phoenician trade vessels, now holds only scattered stones and faint impressions in the sand. The alignment of buildings, harbor walls, and terraces suggests careful planning and communal effort, yet all of it was abandoned without explanation. How could a community so connected, so resilient, vanish without a trace of conflict or warning? Standing amid the ruins today, it is possible to imagine life in motion. The clang of metal in workshops, the murmur of trade, and the smell of the sea mixing with cooking fires. And then, an abrupt silence, a collective disappearance, leaving behind only stones and memories. What drove the inhabitants to leave so suddenly? Was it a natural disaster, a human strategy, or something beyond our understanding? The Phoenician outpost remains a haunting testament to the fragility of civilization, a reminder that even well-established communities are vulnerable to forces, seen or unseen, that can erase them almost entirely. Its mystery endures, silently challenging us to reconcile history with the inexplicable and to wonder what other secrets the Mediterranean coast may still conceal beneath its waves and cliffs. From the abandoned stones of a Phoenician outpost, where life once thrived only to vanish without a trace, our journey now follows the faint traces of human endeavor eastward, across deserts and mountains, toward the heart of Mesopotamia. In ancient records and fragmentary trade logs, historians have noted a particularly unsettling event: a caravan, laden with precious goods from the eastern realms, setting out for the famed city of Babylon, never arriving. Despite its size, significance, and careful planning, the caravan simply disappears from history, leaving only silence in its wake. The caravan would have been formidable, comprising dozens of camels, pack animals, and merchants skilled in navigation, protection, and trade. Its cargo likely included silk, spices, tin, and other exotic wares coveted in Babylonian markets. Archaeological and textual evidence from surrounding regions confirms that such trade routes were meticulously mapped, frequently traveled, and regularly recorded in cuneiform logs. Yet despite these safeguards, this particular journey evaporates from records without explanation, prompting questions that have haunted historians for centuries. Mainstream interpretations often emphasize natural hazards. The deserts and mountains east of Babylon are notoriously unforgiving, with sudden sandstorms, extreme temperatures, and treacherous passes that could swallow even the most experienced caravan. Some scholars suggest that a massive storm, flash flood, or landslide may have destroyed the convoy, leaving no survivors to report back, no carcasses to mark the tragedy. Others propose disease or food scarcity, silent killers capable of decimating an entire caravan before it reached civilization. While plausible, these explanations leave a peculiar emptiness. Why do contemporaneous records not mention the disaster, as they do for other calamities? More speculative theories add a layer of intrigue. Could the caravan have been intercepted by forces unknown, perhaps rogue bandits whose activities were never recorded? Or might there have been political intrigue, with rival city-states orchestrating its disappearance to protect economic interests? Ancient chronicles hint at strange omens and celestial phenomena at the time of the caravan's departure, described in vague terms that some interpret as warnings or portents. Was there a natural phenomenon, a sudden storm, a shifting desert, or even an unrecognized geological event that intervened in ways now lost to our understanding? The route itself amplifies the mystery. Stretching from the eastern steppes through arid deserts and over mountainous terrain, it was a corridor both vital and perilous. The caravan would have depended on oases, rivers, and knowledge of local tribes. Any deviation, whether from accident, deception, or unknown forces, could have led to disappearance without trace. In modern explorations, scattered remnants of trade goods have been found in unexpected places, tiny shards of pottery, metal fragments, or camel bones, yet none conclusively linked to this missing expedition, leaving open a trail of tantalizing clues. To imagine the caravan moving through the desert is to confront both human ambition and nature's indifference. Camels straining under heavy loads, merchants scanning the horizon for signs of danger, and the relentless sun painting sand and rock in shifting golds and reds. And then, suddenly, nothing. No signs of struggle, no remains of campfires, no survivors returning. The lost caravan challenges our understanding of risk, record, and the vulnerabilities of human enterprise. Was it an accident of nature, a calculated act by unknown hands, or something more enigmatic entirely? The answer remains hidden, buried beneath centuries of sand, silence, and the vastness of the eastern trade routes, waiting for those patient enough to seek it. From the silent sands of the eastern trade routes, where a Phoenician caravan vanished into the desert without a trace, our investigation turns westward to the rolling hills of ancient Etruria, in what is now central Italy. Beneath a modest tumulus, an early Etruscan tomb has yielded a discovery both breathtaking and enigmatic. A sealed bronze chamber, hidden beneath layers of earth, untouched for millennia. The chamber's presence was first hinted at by subtle anomalies in the tomb's structure, metallic reflections, irregular acoustics, and an almost imperceptible vibration underfoot that led archaeologists to probe deeper. The tomb itself, dating to the 7th century BC, is modest by royal standards but significant in its construction. Stone walls, painted frescoes, and funerary offerings attest to a culture steeped in ritual and reverence for the afterlife. Yet it is the chamber beneath, composed entirely of bronze plates intricately joined and sealed with unknown alloys, that captures attention. Unlike typical burial spaces, this inner sanctum is hermetically closed, devoid of air or light, preserving the silence of centuries. Its purpose is immediately puzzling. Why enclose what seems like a tomb within another tomb, using such labor-intensive and enduring materials? Mainstream interpretations suggest ritualistic or protective functions. The chamber may have been designed to safeguard the remains of an important individual or to enshrine sacred artifacts meant to accompany the deceased into the afterlife. Bronze, a metal of both value and durability, could have been intended to ward off looters, animals, or even spiritual intrusions. Yet the level of craftsmanship exceeds anything known for utilitarian protection alone, hinting at symbolic or mystical significance. Speculative theories further deepen the mystery. Some scholars propose that the chamber was meant to contain knowledge, relics, or objects of power that Etruscans believed should never see the light of day. Could it have been a repository of esoteric wisdom, accessible only to the initiated? Others wonder whether the chamber's unusual design may encode celestial alignments or secret measurements, linking it to astronomical or ritual calendars. There are even whispered suggestions that the chamber could hold evidence of contacts with cultures long lost to history, artifacts that might challenge our understanding of Etruscan trade, travel, and influence. The chamber's very concealment invites questions. How could the Etruscans construct such a precise bronze enclosure without compromising the tomb above? And why was it sealed so completely that even centuries of archaeological excavation struggle to reveal its interior without risk? The act of hiding suggests urgency, secrecy, and reverence, a deliberate attempt to remove the chamber from ordinary perception and protect it from human curiosity or interference. Standing above the tomb today, archaeologists and visitors alike can feel the weight of time and intention pressing down. One imagines the hands of ancient craftsmen shaping bronze with patience and purpose, sealing an inner sanctum with meticulous care, aware that their work would remain hidden for generations. What lies within this metallic sarcophagus? Are there relics of forgotten rites, tools of knowledge, or the remains of someone whose importance transcended ordinary life? And if we cannot yet see inside, does the chamber itself speak? A silent testament to beliefs, fears, and mysteries that have withstood the erosion of time. The sealed bronze chamber beneath the Etruscan tomb endures as a profound enigma, a reminder that even in well-studied civilizations, some secrets are carefully buried, leaving us to wonder not only about the past they concealed, but also about the knowledge we have yet to uncover. Beneath the sun-baked streets of a small, seemingly unremarkable Sicilian town lies a secret that has been buried, quite literally, for millennia. Here, under layers of soil, rubble, and time, archaeologists uncovered what they now refer to as the ash-covered sanctuary. It is a place both ordinary and extraordinary, a place that seems frozen in the aftermath of an event so catastrophic that the evidence of life itself was suspended in ash. As the dust settles around the excavation site, one cannot help but feel the weight of a long-forgotten past pressing against the present. The sanctuary itself is not grand in the sense of monumental Greek temples or imposing Roman basilicas. It is intimate, almost private, its walls constructed from local stone and covered in intricate carvings, symbols that appear both familiar and enigmatic. The floor, strangely uniform despite centuries of collapse above it, is coated in a fine layer of ash, almost as if a thin veil of winter snow had fallen and remained untouched for thousands of years. This ash is not merely the remnants of a hearth or ritual fire. It is pervasive, lining the walls, filling the corners, and even adhering to the carved reliefs of the sanctuary's interior. Radiocarbon dating places the construction of this space around 400 BC during a period of vibrant cultural exchange in Sicily. The island, a crossroads of Mediterranean civilizations, was home to Greeks, Carthaginians, and indigenous Sicilian tribes. Each culture left its mark on the island, from coinage to pottery, from urban planning to religious rites. Yet this sanctuary defies easy classification. While some carvings echo Greek mythological motifs, others suggest local, perhaps even pre-Greek ceremonial practices. And the ash, what catastrophic force could have covered the structure so completely? Volcanic activity in Sicily is well documented, with Mount Etna looming not far from the town, but geologists examining the composition of the ash find inconsistencies. Its chemical profile does not match known eruptions of Etna in antiquity. Could it have come from a previously unrecorded volcanic event? Or does it hint at something far stranger, a phenomenon yet to be understood? Walking through the sanctuary today, the silence is almost oppressive, broken only by the sound of footsteps echoing off the stone walls. The air smells faintly of earth and minerals, and the dim light of portable lamps brings out the textures in ways daylight cannot. Here, archaeologists have found evidence of ritual activity, altars carved into the rock, small vessels that may have held offerings, and inscriptions that remain largely undeciphered. Some characters are recognizably Greek, yet others do not match any known alphabet. Are they a local script, lost to time, or a symbolic language meant only for those who performed the rituals here? The artifacts themselves are haunting in their preservation. Figurines of clay, some no larger than a hand, depict human forms in poses of supplication or protection. Others resemble animals, some familiar, others abstract and difficult to identify. Bronze implements, partially corroded but intact, suggest ceremonial use. And scattered among these relics are fragments of pottery blackened by fire, yet not entirely destroyed, as though the flame that consumed them was intense but strangely selective. The combination of ash, fire, and preservation creates a paradox. Destruction and preservation entwined in a single layer of history. Historical records provide scant explanation. The town above the sanctuary appears in chronicles from Greek settlers, but there is no mention of sudden devastation, no tale of catastrophe tied to this hidden chamber. Could this have been an isolated, localized event? Or, as some suggest, might it reflect a wider regional disaster, lost to oral history and erased from written record? Archaeologists debate these questions, leaning on evidence while acknowledging gaps that may never be filled. The mystery deepens when considering the sanctuary's alignment. Surveys reveal that the main chamber is oriented in a precise direction relative to the sun and the stars, aligning with solstices in ways that indicate not only architectural knowledge, but also an astronomical awareness that is surprisingly sophisticated for its time. Did the builders intend the ash to symbolize a celestial event, a ritual marking the passage of the heavens? Or was it simply the tragic residue of a natural disaster? Here, the line between science and speculation blurs, inviting inquiry as much as it resists final explanation. Some scholars have posited alternative, more speculative theories. The sudden ash coverage, combined with the undisturbed state of the sanctuary, has led a few to suggest extraordinary phenomena. Could there have been a localized explosion, perhaps caused by an unknown chemical reaction in the soil or an atmospheric anomaly? Might the ash have been deposited deliberately, as part of a ritual of closure or purification, an act designed to trap the energy of the sacred space within its walls? These ideas, while controversial, are difficult to dismiss outright given the anomalies present. The sanctuary also raises questions about the people who built it. Who were they, and what drove them to construct such a hidden, secluded place of worship? Sicily's history is one of conquest and colonization, of cities rising and falling under Greek, Carthaginian, and later Roman influence. Yet here, beneath layers of settlement and time, is evidence of a culture that operated outside the central narratives of power. They were capable of sophisticated construction and ritual practice, yet they left few traces in the broader historical record. Their story is written in ash and stone, not in the pages of contemporary chroniclers. Even the patterns of damage are unusual. In many ancient ruins, fire and decay leave chaotic, uneven destruction. In this sanctuary, the ash forms a uniform blanket, almost as though the structure had been paused in time, frozen in a moment of significance. Anthropologists have compared it to sites elsewhere in the Mediterranean, from Pompeii to Akrotiri on Santorini, yet there is no clear parallel. The absence of a volcanic explanation here is particularly puzzling. Etna was active during the relevant centuries, yet the chemical signature of the ash differs from known eruptions. Some scientists have suggested atmospheric transport from distant volcanic events, but even this theory struggles to account for the intensity and consistency of coverage within the sanctuary's walls. As researchers sift through the layers, microscopic analysis reveals tiny organic particles trapped in the ash, seeds, pollen, and what appear to be fragments of food offerings. These remnants hint at human presence, of a community that practiced rituals intimately tied to the land, the seasons, and perhaps the stars themselves. Yet who were they in relation to the wider world? And how did such a sophisticated sanctuary disappear so completely beneath centuries of human habitation? Walking through the excavation today, one is struck by a profound sense of absence. The sanctuary offers glimpses of life long extinguished, yet it resists full understanding. Every artifact, every mark of ash, raises questions that extend beyond the confines of the dig site. What was the purpose of these rituals? Why was the sanctuary covered in ash in a way that preserved it so perfectly? And what does this tell us about the people who built it? Their beliefs, their fears, their relationship to the unknown forces of their world? Some have speculated that this sanctuary might connect to broader mysteries of the Mediterranean, unrecorded catastrophes, lost civilizations, or even knowledge deliberately hidden from outsiders. Others caution against overreach, arguing that the simplest explanation, a local fire, a natural disaster, or a ritual closure, remains most likely. Yet the sanctuary's anomalies persist, refusing to fit neatly into either mainstream or fringe interpretations. In the quiet moments, as sunlight filters through gaps in the stonework, the sanctuary feels almost alive, as though the ash itself retains the memory of those who once moved within these walls. It is a place suspended between worlds, the tangible and the enigmatic, the known and the unknowable, and it invites contemplation, not just of the past, but of our own assumptions about history, destruction, and preservation. What, then, lies still undiscovered beneath the Sicilian soil? Could there be other chambers, other sanctuaries, waiting to reveal secrets lost to time? The ash-covered sanctuary reminds us that history is never truly complete, that mysteries persist beneath the surface, both literal and metaphorical. And in that lingering uncertainty, we find the true allure of archaeology, the quiet, persistent call to uncover what was once thought lost, and to face the possibility that some questions may never be fully answered. From the ash-laden sanctuary of Sicily, where centuries-old rituals seem frozen in time, we journey far northeast across the Eurasian steppes to the banks of the Don River, where the remnants of Proto-Scythian camps tell a story both haunting and inexplicable. In this vast expanse of wind-swept grasses, dotted with shallow depressions and fragments of hearths, archaeologists have discovered signs of life that abruptly ends, leaving a landscape once thriving with human activity eerily silent. These camps, occupied roughly between 800 and 600 BC, were bustling hubs of early nomadic culture. Huts carefully arranged, stables for horses, storage pits for grain and tools, but all indications of occupation seem to stop suddenly, as though the people simply vanished overnight. The first clues emerged during surveys of burial mounds and encampments along the Don's meandering course. Pottery shards, arrowheads, and remnants of daily life suggested a society adapting to the harsh realities of the steppe, skilled in animal husbandry, metalwork, and long-distance trade. Yet when layers of habitation were analyzed, archaeologists found a pattern that defies ordinary explanation. The topmost occupation layers show no signs of violence, no signs of epidemic, no burned structures, only absence. Tools lay scattered, hearths cold, and tents collapsed, but there was no evidence of struggle, nor any trace of bodies to explain the sudden abandonment. Mainstream interpretations have offered a range of explanations. Climatic shifts could have rendered the land suddenly uninhabitable. Perhaps a harsh winter or prolonged drought forced the inhabitants to relocate en masse, leaving everything behind in haste. Trade disruptions, conflicts with neighboring groups, or the migration of herds could have triggered an organized departure. And yet, none of these theories fully account for the peculiar pattern of abandonment. Why would a community leave behind tools, personal items, and evidence of daily life if relocation were merely a practical decision? The meticulous layout of some camps, preserved in situ, suggests an intentional act, one that preserved the structures rather than destroyed them. Speculative theories delve deeper into the mystery. Some suggest that ritualistic or spiritual forces may have played a role in the disappearance. Could these communities have been responding to omens or phenomena now lost to history? Ancient oral traditions, scattered among neighboring cultures, speak of invisible forces sweeping across the steppe, of sudden silences and vanishing tribes, almost as though an unseen hand had claimed them. Archaeologists have noted subtle signs in some camp layouts, circles of stones, deliberately aligned post holes, that hint at ceremonial considerations, though their precise function remains uncertain. Could the act of leaving have been a collective ritual, a migration dictated not only by survival, but also by belief? Adding to the enigma are the few artifacts found outside the camps, along possible migratory routes. Small items, broken in places, suggest movement, yet their sporadic distribution fails to create a clear picture of where the Proto-Scythians might have gone. Did they disperse in small groups across the steppes, or was there an event that caused them to vanish entirely? Some fringe theories propose more extraordinary possibilities. That unknown environmental phenomena, seismic or meteorological, may have caused rapid changes to the landscape, prompting sudden mass displacement. Others speculate that incursions by distant tribes, invisible to the historical record, could have driven the camp's inhabitants into stealthy retreat, leaving no trace for the archaeologists who would later probe their settlements. As we examine the archaeological evidence, the silence of the camps grows almost palpable. Walking among the remains, one can sense the rhythm of a life once lived, now stilled. Hearths, fire-blackened but cold for over 2 millennia, speak of evenings spent in communal warmth, of meals shared and stories told. Tools of daily labor, scrapers, needles, and crude knives, lie in positions that suggest abrupt interruption. There are no graves within the settlement boundaries, no skeletal remains to hint at catastrophe, leaving only the unsettling quiet of absence. The Don River itself, winding lazily through the steppe, seems almost complicit in this mystery, carrying with it the echoes of lives lived, disappeared, and forgotten. Could the river have dictated the movement of these people, or did it merely bear witness to their vanishing? The archaeological record remains stubbornly opaque, offering tantalizing fragments while withholding explanation. For modern investigators, the sudden silence challenges assumptions about the resilience and adaptability of early nomadic cultures, forcing a reconsideration of how societies interact with environment, belief, and the unforeseen forces that shape history. Standing amidst the empty camp, one is compelled to reflect not only on what happened to the Proto-Scythians, but also on the broader patterns of human vulnerability and impermanence. What drove an entire network of settlements to cease functioning, leaving no violent mark, no evidence of struggle, and yet no inhabitants? Was it survival, belief, disaster, or something beyond our comprehension? And if the people truly vanished, where did they go, and what traces might still linger beneath the soil, waiting for discovery? The sudden silence of the Proto-Scythian camps endures as a haunting reminder that even the most well-adapted and seemingly secure communities can leave behind mysteries that time cannot erode. Across the endless plains of the Don, the question remains: how does a people vanish without a trace, leaving only the quiet testimony of empty hearths, cold ash, and the whispering winds over the steppe? And perhaps most unsettling of all is the realization that the earth itself may hold secrets that will never fully reveal themselves. From the silent steppes of the Don, where the abrupt disappearance of the Proto-Scythian camps leaves only questions, we now journey southwest to the rugged hills and valleys of ancient Anatolia, a land of layered civilizations and hidden rituals. Here, among weathered limestone cliffs and forgotten temples, archaeologists and historians have uncovered traces of a phenomenon that defies easy explanation: the so-called whispering stones, sacred objects carried by priests across vast distances, whose origins and purpose remain shrouded in mystery. These stones, often small, polished, and irregularly shaped, have been found in sites stretching from the Hittite heartlands to more remote Anatolian settlements. Inscriptions, faint and worn by centuries, suggest they were considered vessels of communication, perhaps with the divine, or with forces beyond human comprehension. Excavations reveal that the stones were rarely left behind. Instead, they were carefully transported from one sacred location to another, often along routes that align with astronomical or geographical markers. Such meticulous movement hints at an intentional, highly structured practice, yet the meaning behind it remains elusive. Historical records, including fragmentary Hittite tablets, occasionally allude to priests carrying talking stones or echoing hearts during processions and ceremonies. Scholars have debated whether these references are literal or metaphorical, symbolic of divine favor or spiritual authority. Mainstream interpretations suggest that the stones could have been ceremonial tools, perhaps for divination or ritual purification, or even simple markers of priestly status. However, the consistent reverence afforded to these objects, combined with their widespread geographic distribution, raises questions that transcend standard explanations. Why were these stones so highly valued, and why were they moved across hundreds of kilometers rather than replaced locally? Speculative theories extend into even more enigmatic territory. Some propose that the stones possessed acoustic properties, capable of producing subtle vibrations or sounds when handled, a phenomenon that might have been interpreted as communication with unseen forces. Others suggest that their surfaces, often etched with faint patterns, contained knowledge lost to history, proto-writing, mystical symbols, or encoded messages understood only by the initiated. Could the stones themselves have been seen as conduits, bridging the material and spiritual worlds? Could the act of carrying them, alone or in ritual procession, have been considered an act of sacred transmission, a way to maintain cosmic balance across the Anatolian landscape? The archaeological context deepens the mystery. Stones have been found in temples, cave sanctuaries, and even simple rural shrines, sometimes placed under altars or within carefully constructed niches. Rarely do they appear in domestic contexts, suggesting that their significance was strictly religious or ceremonial. And yet, despite the precision with which they were handled, few inscriptions clarify their exact purpose. Modern analysis has revealed traces of ochre, resin, and other organic substances on several stones, implying that rituals involving color, scent, or touch may have been central to their function. But what messages or powers did the priests believe the stones carried? Walking along these ancient paths today, one can almost imagine the slow, deliberate footsteps of priests, stones cradled carefully in their arms, moving through valleys and over hills, ritual chants echoing faintly across the landscape. The stones themselves, silent and enigmatic, seem to hum with a presence beyond our understanding, reminding us that human devotion can be guided by forces unseen. Were the priests bearers of hidden knowledge or guardians of objects whose significance has been lost to the centuries? The story of the Whispering Stones remains incomplete, an open chapter in the deep history of Anatolia. Every discovery, an inscribed mark, a faint residue, a carefully aligned procession route, adds both clarity and new questions. What did these stones truly whisper, and to whom? Were they instruments of spiritual authority, conduits to the divine, or something far stranger, now invisible to modern eyes? And as the sun rises over the hills where they were once carried, we are left to wonder what knowledge may still lie dormant, waiting for the attentive observer to hear the echoes that history has left behind. From the hills and valleys of ancient Anatolia, where priests once carried their enigmatic whispering stones, our journey now moves southward into the vast, arid expanse of the desert, where shifting sands conceal secrets for millennia. Amidst this desolate landscape, archaeologists and explorers stumbled upon something extraordinary: the ruins of an oasis city, abandoned yet remarkably preserved, its granaries and storage chambers still filled with food that should have long decayed. The discovery is not just remarkable for its preservation, but for the questions it raises. How could a city, seemingly thriving, be deserted so suddenly, leaving behind provisions sufficient to feed hundreds? The city lies nestled among palm groves and natural springs, a rare pocket of life in a region otherwise dominated by dunes and rocky outcrops. From the air, the settlement reveals a carefully planned network of streets, rectangular dwellings, communal courtyards, and large storage facilities. The stones of the buildings are blackened in some areas, hinting at fires that may have swept through. Yet the granaries, lined with clay vessels and sealed jars, appear untouched by flames or decay. Archaeologists have catalogued jars of grains, pulses, and even dried fruits, some sealed with clay stoppers and still remarkably intact. It is as though the city's inhabitants simply vanished, leaving their daily lives frozen in time. Historical records from nearby regions provide few clues. There are mentions of oasis settlements along trade and caravan routes dating back as early as 1200 BC, but none describe a sudden disappearance. Could this city have been caught in the path of a natural disaster, perhaps a flash flood, shifting sands, or even an outbreak of disease? Evidence of human activity, footprints preserved in compacted earth, abandoned tools, and pottery, suggests haste rather than a slow decline. Yet no skeletal remains have been found within the city itself, an absence that deepens the enigma. Why would the inhabitants leave so abruptly, and where did they go? Mainstream archaeologists propose several plausible explanations. Some suggest that the city may have been part of a larger network of Oasis trade centers, abandoned once routes shifted or resources dwindled. Others posit that social or political upheaval forced a sudden evacuation. Yet the preservation of food raises further questions. Why leave sustenance behind when survival in the desert depended on it? Could the abandonment have been ritualistic, a mass exodus prompted by religious or ceremonial reasons, perhaps tied to omens, celestial events, or divine decrees? Speculative theories venture into more mysterious territory. Some propose that the city's sudden desertion was caused by environmental anomalies, shifting winds burying portions of the city, contaminating wells, or even seismic activity creating the illusion of impassable terrain. Others suggest a darker possibility. A hidden threat, invisible to the archaeological record, might have compelled inhabitants to flee. Could an unseen predator, human or otherwise, have driven the population to abandon everything they held dear, leaving jars of food untouched in their haste? Inside the storage chambers, the arrangement of provisions is orderly, almost ritualistic. Grains are stacked in neat pyramids, jars grouped by size, and in some rooms there are small offerings, pots of water, pieces of pottery, or faint traces of incense. This organization implies that the abandonment, while sudden, may have followed a pattern or belief system, a method to ensure that the city's essentials remained safeguarded, even in absence. What does this say about the mindset of the inhabitants? Did they believe they would return, or did they intend these stores as a gift to unseen travelers or divine forces? The surrounding desert adds another layer of mystery. Sand dunes encroach upon the city, partially hiding streets and courtyards from view, as though the desert itself is slowly reclaiming the settlement. The oasis, once a source of life, now offers silence, broken only by the occasional wind sweeping through empty streets. Even the natural springs, once vital to sustaining the population, are quiet and still, their waters reflecting the ruins in a haunting mirror. How long can such preservation last? Will the sands conceal more secrets, waiting for the day they reveal yet another piece of this enigmatic puzzle? As researchers examine the site, questions multiply. How did the city sustain itself for centuries in the harsh desert environment? What social, religious, or political forces shaped the lives of its inhabitants? And most perplexingly, what compelled them to leave so abruptly, leaving behind the very sustenance necessary for survival? Some point to parallels with other abandoned settlements worldwide, places where sudden disappearances coincide with natural disasters, resource depletion, or societal collapse. Others caution against drawing simple conclusions, emphasizing that each mystery carries its own unique context, one that may forever elude our full understanding. Walking through the ruins today, one can almost feel the ghostly echoes of daily life, the sound of footsteps on stone, the clatter of jars, the whispers of children or merchants negotiating the trade of grains and dates. The air carries a weight of absence, a reminder that the desert preserves as much as it conceals. Every artifact, every jar, every neatly stacked pile of provisions speaks not only to what was once, but to what has been lost, leaving us to wonder what invisible forces shaped the fate of this city. The abandoned Oasis city, with its untouched food stores and silent streets, remains one of the most haunting discoveries in the study of human history. Was it environmental catastrophe, human intervention, or something entirely beyond comprehension that led to its sudden desertion? And as the desert continues to shift and change, burying secrets beneath its sands, we are left with a profound question. What other cities, other lives, lie hidden, waiting to challenge our understanding of survival, civilization, and the thin line between presence and disappearance? Following our journey through the sun-scorched streets of the abandoned Oasis city, where the silence of untouched granaries spoke volumes about sudden departures, we now turn our gaze northward, along the meandering waters of a river that has cradled civilizations for millennia. Here, amid fertile banks and shifting silt, lay the settlement of Tel Qarassa, a city that once thrived on trade, agriculture, and the steady rhythm of river life. Today, the site is a puzzle, a haunting whisper of the past. Ruins half buried beneath layers of earth, streets that vanish beneath sediment, and evidence of human activity abruptly halted, as though time itself had paused. Archaeologists first came across Tel Qarassa decades ago, drawn by the occasional protruding fragments of pottery and the faint outlines of walls that hinted at the once bustling settlement. Unlike the desert city we previously explored, this site had flourished on the abundance of the river, its people relying on fertile soil and dependable water for crops, livestock, and trade. Excavations revealed homes, workshops, and marketplaces, yet as careful digging progressed, one truth became increasingly undeniable. The settlement had been abandoned suddenly, leaving behind personal possessions, stored grain, and tools in immaculate condition. How could a river-fed city, one seemingly shielded from the harshness of the desert, vanish almost overnight? Tel Qarassa's origins are traced back as far as 1300 BC, placing it among the early riverine settlements of the Levant. Historical accounts from neighboring regions hint at a thriving community engaged in the exchange of metals, textiles, and ceramics. Cuneiform tablets unearthed nearby make fleeting mention of caravans arriving and departing, of taxes and tithes paid, of offerings to local deities, but the records fall silent precisely at the moment when archaeological evidence suggests the settlement disappeared. This silence, both literal and historical, amplifies the mystery. What occurred here that prompted such an abrupt cessation of daily life? Scholars have proposed several plausible explanations. Natural disasters are among the first to be considered. Could the river itself, usually a source of sustenance, have turned against the city? Floods are known to have devastated settlements along the Euphrates, Tigris, and other ancient waterways. Layers of silt, irregular deposition, and sudden changes in soil composition at Tel Qarassa suggest episodes of unusual flooding. Yet, if water was the culprit, why are so many possessions left intact? Why would inhabitants abandon their homes without attempting to salvage even the most essential items? The normal panic of disaster seems at odds with the meticulous placement of objects and stored goods. Another line of inquiry considers societal and political factors. Could conflict, either from neighboring polities or internal strife, have forced inhabitants to flee? Excavations show no signs of battle, no weapons scattered in chaos, no remains of mass violence, no fortifications breached. If aggression played a role, it was not recorded in physical evidence, leaving us with more questions than answers. Some scholars speculate that epidemics might have driven the city's sudden depopulation. But again, skeletal evidence is scarce, and the abandonment appears almost too orderly for the frantic flight that disease usually provokes. Speculative theories delve into the more enigmatic possibilities. Some researchers wonder if environmental change, beyond simple flooding, could have rendered the settlement untenable. Shifts in river course are well documented in the ancient Levant. Rivers meander, vanish, and sometimes leave fertile valleys barren. Could the river that nourished Tel Qarassa have diverted, leaving the city stranded, its lifeblood evaporated into the desert beyond the silted banks? If so, why leave carefully stored grain, tools, and domestic items behind? Other, more unusual hypotheses explore ritual or spiritual dimensions. Certain artifacts found within the settlement hint at ceremonial activity, carefully arranged vessels, figurines, and altars that seem to mark celestial events or seasonal cycles. Could the abandonment have been influenced by prophecy, divine mandate, or fear of celestial omens? Were the people of Tel Qarassa persuaded or compelled to leave, trusting in forces beyond human comprehension? Such notions, while impossible to confirm, add depth to the puzzle. A civilization's disappearance is not only a question of survival, but also of belief, perception, and cultural narrative. One of the most perplexing aspects of the site is the state of domestic storage. In homes across the settlement, jars and bins of grain, pulses, and dried fruits remain, arranged as if awaiting daily use. Some workshops display tools neatly stacked, unfinished crafts left on tables, and trade goods ready for shipment. There are no indications that the inhabitants intended a return. The abandonment is complete and comprehensive. Why would a community, well-positioned along a fertile river and engaged in regional trade, vanish without a trace, leaving their provisions perfectly preserved? The surrounding landscape offers both clues and contradictions. Tel Qarassa lies in a floodplain, a location that should have been ideal for agriculture but perilously exposed to the whims of water and weather. Nearby hills provide vantage points, suggesting that inhabitants could have monitored distant threats or seasonal changes. Yet no warning signs appear in the archaeological record, no gradual decline or defensive measures. Instead, what remains is an unsettling stillness, as though the settlement's heartbeat stopped abruptly, leaving the silence to echo across centuries. Even modern technology cannot fully illuminate the mystery. Ground-penetrating radar and satellite imagery reveal structural outlines buried beneath layers of silt and sediment, hinting at extensions of the city yet to be excavated. Traces of roads leading to distant trade hubs suggest that Tel Qarassa was integrated into a wider economic network, yet the disappearance seems to have severed these connections entirely. Was this a localized calamity, or part of a broader, unexplained pattern affecting river settlements across the region? The gaps in historical continuity leave more questions than answers, compelling researchers to wonder what remains hidden, buried beneath the shifting earth. As one walks through the exposed ruins, there is a palpable sense of absence. The wind stirs dust over empty courtyards, carrying faint echoes of market chatter and the rhythms of daily life that once marked the riverbanks. The orderly preservation of goods, the untouched altars, and the sudden disappearance all speak to a singular truth. This is a place where human intention and natural forces intersected in ways that remain beyond our full understanding. Was Tel Qarassa abandoned due to environmental catastrophe, disease, social unrest, or reasons beyond human comprehension? The disappearance of Tel Qarassa stands as one of the most compelling enigmas of ancient settlement archaeology. It challenges conventional narratives about human resilience, adaptation, and the fragility of civilization. Each artifact, each fragment of pottery, each grain left in a jar contributes a small piece to a larger, unsolved puzzle. And as the river continues its eternal flow, slowly reclaiming its lost city with silt and sediment, one cannot help but ask, how many other communities, thriving and bustling, have vanished without explanation, leaving behind only whispers in the soil, shadows in the sand, and questions that remain unanswered to this day? From the silent streets of Tel Qarassa, we now shift our attention northward, into the rugged, wind-swept heights of the Caucasus. Here, between jagged mountain peaks and steep valleys carved by glacial rivers, lie the remnants of villages that, according to historical records and modern archaeological surveys, were consumed by fire, not as the result of conquest or human aggression, but under circumstances that remain perplexingly unexplained. These settlements, scattered across the Highlands, offer a haunting glimpse into a past where daily life and catastrophe collided in ways that defy conventional understanding. The first explorers to survey these highlands noted an unsettling pattern. Entire villages reduced to ash, yet strangely intact in their layout. Foundations remained, ovens and hearths blackened but unbroken, personal items scattered as if the inhabitants had stepped outside for a brief moment. The destruction bore none of the hallmarks of warfare. There were no fortifications breached, no weapons left scattered in hasty abandonment, no evidence of pillage. Homes, granaries, and storage sheds stood charred yet structurally recognizable, their form preserved in a ghostly echo of what had once been. How could fire, a force so destructive, leave such order amidst devastation? Archaeological analysis dates these incidents between 1200 and 800 BC, a period of shifting alliances and migrations across the Caucasus. Some sites reveal charred grains, utensils, and textiles, objects that speak to a daily life abruptly interrupted. Unlike settlements abandoned due to famine or flooding, these villages show evidence of sudden combustion, often localized yet comprehensive. The phenomenon repeats across valleys, a pattern too consistent to be dismissed as coincidence. Historical sources provide little guidance. Local chronicles and oral traditions recount tales of sudden firestorms descending from the mountains, sometimes accompanied by strange lights or unseasonal wind patterns. They speak of entire communities vanishing in a single day, leaving behind only smoke and scorched earth. While folklore often embellishes, the archaeological record supports something unusual: destruction that is simultaneous, rapid, and yet, in a curious way, selective. Artifacts remain intact, heavy stone constructions survive, while wooden elements are obliterated. The selective nature of the fire raises questions that science struggles to answer. Natural explanations are among the first to be considered. Could lightning strikes, forest fires, or volcanic activity account for such devastation? The Caucasus is seismically active, and volcanic eruptions, though infrequent, could theoretically trigger sudden conflagrations. Yet the distribution of the burned villages challenges these notions. Fires are documented at elevations and locations where natural ignition sources seem improbable, and the precision with which entire settlements were consumed, while leaving surrounding forests relatively untouched, does not fit typical wildfire patterns. Some researchers suggest environmental causes tied to climatic shifts. Drought, high winds, and extreme temperature fluctuations might have rendered wooden structures extraordinarily vulnerable to spontaneous combustion. Could intense heat combined with drought-dried timber have triggered a chain reaction across villages? While this theory has merit, it cannot fully explain the absence of similar incidents in neighboring regions under comparable conditions, leaving an unsettling gap in our understanding. Other, more enigmatic explanations venture into the speculative. Certain scholars have considered astronomical phenomena, noting that some burned sites coincide with ancient records of meteor showers or unusual solar activity. Could debris entering the atmosphere have ignited fires across the highlands in patterns that seemed simultaneous to those who lived through it? Others suggest the possibility of chemical processes unknown to us today, natural pyrophoric materials in the soil, or volatile substances used in construction that under rare circumstances could ignite spontaneously. Though these ideas remain unproven, they highlight the complexity and depth of the mystery. Social and anthropological perspectives offer additional layers. The Highlands were home to communities with complex ritual practices and deep connections to the landscape. Could ceremonial activities, intentionally or inadvertently, have contributed to these fiery events? Some sites reveal altars and religious artifacts amid the ruins, raising questions about whether ritual fires could have escalated beyond control or whether the destruction was interpreted by later generations as divine intervention. Yet even as we weigh these possibilities, the human element is striking. Unlike the river settlement of Tel Qarassa, where the abrupt abandonment left grain and personal items preserved, here the traces of human life are charred but enduring. Hearths, pottery, and tools show evidence of sudden exposure to heat. Clothing and organic materials often survive in a skeletal form, carbonized but recognizable. These remnants speak to a moment frozen in time, a community interrupted at its daily rhythm, leaving behind an eerie tableau for modern eyes to interpret. Geographical analysis deepens the puzzle. The villages are scattered along valleys, perched on terraces above rushing rivers or clinging to the sides of mountains where slope and exposure vary dramatically. Fires that destroyed one settlement sometimes spared another only a few kilometers away. Why were some communities completely consumed while others, similarly exposed, survived? The pattern seems neither random nor predictable, suggesting factors at work that defy easy categorization. Technological methods, from satellite imaging to ground-penetrating radar, have provided tantalizing glimpses of what remains beneath the ashes. Foundations, buried refuse pits, and hidden water channels offer clues about settlement organization and daily life, yet they reveal little about the precise cause of the burning. The highland villages seem to guard their secrets with obstinate silence, their destruction encoded in layers of ash and earth. The burned without war villages of the Caucasus Highlands force us to reconsider the fragility of ancient human settlement. They remind us that civilization is not only vulnerable to external aggression, but also to forces, natural, environmental, or possibly unknown, that operate beyond our comprehension. These settlements, frozen in charred memory, speak to a continuity of mystery that echoes across centuries. How many other communities have been erased in ways that leave no clear explanation, their stories obscured beneath layers of soil, stone, and ash? Walking among the remains, one senses the intersection of life and catastrophe in its starkest form. The wind whispers through charred timbers, carrying faint echoes of voices, market chatter, and laughter that once filled these highland valleys. Smoke-stained stones, blackened pottery, and scorched door frames all attest to a moment of sudden, uncontested devastation. And as the mountains stand unchanged, weathered by time, one cannot help but wonder, what force, natural, human, or otherwise, could have brought entire villages to their knees, leaving behind only mystery and the faint aroma of fire preserved across millennia? The burned without war villages remain a compelling, unresolved enigma. Each artifact, each layer of ash, each shadowed hearth contributes a fragment to a story we may never fully understand. The pattern of destruction challenges our assumptions about ancient life, the forces of nature, and the delicate balance between human endeavor and environmental vulnerability. And as the highlands continue to weather wind, rain, and the passage of centuries, the question remains, what other lost communities lie hidden, waiting for discovery, their endings as abrupt and inexplicable as those of the villages of the Caucasus? As the highland winds fade behind us, carrying with them the echoes of charred villages and unanswered questions, we turn our gaze southward to the sun-baked lands of Nubia. Stretching along the winding banks of the Nile, this ancient civilization has long fascinated historians, archaeologists, and explorers alike. Yet, even among its well-studied temples, pyramids, and royal burials, there exists a mystery that continues to evade comprehension, a mystery hidden within the burial masks of Nubia, objects meant to guide the dead into the afterlife, yet inscribed with symbols that remain unreadable to this day. The burial masks themselves are extraordinary in their craftsmanship. Fashioned from layers of painted wood, gold leaf, and intricate beadwork, they preserve the visage of the deceased with astonishing realism. The eyes, often inlaid with quartz or obsidian, seem to watch across millennia, while painted lips and delicate facial contours evoke the essence of those who once walked the sunlit streets along the Nile. On the surface, the masks are vibrant and carefully constructed, each element selected with ritual precision. But it is inside, beneath the layers of resin, lacquer, and ceremonial paint, that the enigma lies. Beneath the outer visage, concealed from immediate view, are inscriptions, symbols, and glyphs that have yet to be deciphered. These markings are unlike anything encountered in neighboring Egyptian hieroglyphics or other known Nubian scripts. They are silent, cryptic, and profoundly intimate, as though the mask itself guards a secret meant only for the departed. Archaeologists first documented these internal inscriptions in the early 20th century, when advanced excavation techniques allowed the careful removal of the mask's internal supports without causing damage. What they found was perplexing. Rows of geometric shapes, repeated motifs, and linear patterns arranged in sequences that hint at meaning, yet resist translation. Some sequences resemble numeric notation. Others evoke abstract representations of natural or spiritual phenomena. There are lines that curve like the bend of the Nile, spirals that suggest cycles of life and death, and clusters of symbols that appear deliberately obscured. What is striking is that these are not random scratches or decorative flourishes. They are intentional, precise, and methodical, indicating a system of communication, one that has not survived in any other known records. Scholars have offered numerous theories. Mainstream explanations suggest these symbols could represent a ritual language, a ceremonial shorthand known only to the priests and scribes who performed funerary rites. Perhaps they were intended as instructions or prayers for the deceased, meant to guide their soul through the underworld, or to record genealogical and religious information in a form inaccessible to the living. This aligns with the broader understanding of Nubian spirituality, which shared elements with Egyptian beliefs while developing distinct practices of its own. Burial masks, after all, were not merely decorative. They were conduits between the mortal world and the afterlife. Could the hidden symbols be protective incantations? A cryptic assurance that the soul would reach its destination unimpeded? Yet even the most careful comparative analyses yield few parallels. No Nubian texts discovered thus far replicate these internal symbols. They do not match Egyptian hieroglyphs, Coptic scripts, or other early African writing systems. Some scholars speculate that this could represent a private, perhaps even elite form of communication, known only to the highest religious authorities or reserved for royalty. Others suggest that the symbols may have encoded complex astronomical, astrological, or calendrical information, details critical to the journey of the dead, but obscure to those outside the priestly class. Could these inscriptions mark the precise positions of celestial bodies, aligning the deceased with cosmic forces believed to influence the afterlife? The material evidence adds another layer of intrigue. The inscriptions are carved or etched into the inner layers of wood, sometimes beneath gold leaf or resin, and in some cases hidden under thin layers of charcoal or pigment. This deliberate concealment indicates intention. These symbols were never meant to be read casually, or perhaps even at all, by the living. Could it be that the very act of secrecy was sacred, that the meaning itself carried power only when inaccessible, known to the divine or to the soul of the deceased? Speculative theories abound, blending history, archaeology, and the fringes of conjecture. Some researchers have proposed that the symbols may be a form of proto-writing, a bridge between spoken ritual and fully developed script yet to be understood. Others have gone further, suggesting extraterrestrial influence, a controversial idea drawn from the apparent uniqueness of the symbols, their precision, and their absence in broader Nubian or Egyptian texts. While such theories remain unverified, the silence of the masks invites wonder. What knowledge could have been preserved within these hidden scripts, now locked away by the passage of centuries? Field studies in Nubian cemeteries provide further context. Excavations near sites such as Kerma and Napata reveal that the masks were often placed atop the faces of royalty or high-ranking individuals, accompanied by finely woven textiles, jewelry, and ceremonial tools. Yet even in graves where the wealth of the deceased is evident, the inner inscriptions remain enigmatic, resisting interpretation despite decades of scholarly attention. The repetition of certain symbols across masks from different regions and time periods suggests continuity and purpose, hinting at a standardized system of communication whose rules we no longer possess. Modern technology has allowed for closer examination. High-resolution imaging, infrared scanning, and 3D reconstruction have revealed the depth and complexity of these inscriptions, showing layers of corrections, overpainting, and interwoven sequences that suggest deliberate encryption. Certain symbols are overlaid with faint markings, perhaps representing revisions, ritual edits, or even attempts to conceal or enhance the potency of the message. The precision is meticulous, demanding craftsmanship, foresight, and a level of abstraction that challenges modern understanding. The mystery extends beyond the symbols themselves. Why were they hidden inside masks rather than displayed externally, as hieroglyphs were in tombs and temples? One possibility is that these symbols served as a private record, meant only for the dead or for the gods. Another is that they acted as a safeguard, ensuring that sacred knowledge remained inaccessible to the living while still performing a functional role in funerary rites. But what knowledge could have been so vital, so sacred, that it warranted concealment beneath layers of wood and gold? And why has no surviving contemporary text clarified their meaning? Cultural and anthropological perspectives offer tantalizing, if speculative, avenues. Nubian religious practices were deeply intertwined with the Nile, cycles of agriculture, and the cosmic order. Masks themselves were believed to animate the spirit, bridging life and death, the earthly and the divine. Could these symbols encode not just religious ritual, but metaphysical understanding, prayers, warnings, or even instructions meant to accompany the soul through liminal spaces? And if so, how much of this knowledge has been irrevocably lost, its key buried beneath the surface of centuries, obscured by time and tradition? The untranslated symbols invite a kind of meditation on human ingenuity and mystery. They force us to confront the limits of our understanding, reminding us that even civilizations long studied and admired can leave enigmas beyond our reach. Each mask, each carved glyph, represents a human desire to connect across the threshold of mortality, to communicate beyond the temporal realm. And yet, the silence persists. Despite advances in technology, decades of scholarly investigation, and meticulous cataloging, the inscriptions remain locked, their language forgotten, their purpose veiled. Walking among these burial sites, one cannot help but feel the intimacy of the act, the quiet reverence of the artisans who concealed these symbols, the care with which each line and curve was executed, and the spiritual weight they carried. The masks are not merely objects. They are vessels of memory, guardians of a knowledge we may never fully comprehend. What did the creators hope to preserve? What truths or guidance were intended for the dead? And, perhaps most hauntingly, what do these untranslated inscriptions tell us about the fragility of knowledge across time, the impermanence of human understanding, and the enduring presence of mystery in the midst of the familiar? As the echoes of Nubia's untranslated secrets fade into memory, our journey now shifts northwest, across mountains and rivers, to the rolling plains and dense forests of ancient Gaul. Here, Long before the Roman legions would imprint their empire upon the land, the Celts, masters of ritual, landscape, and sacred memory, constructed sites that bridged the mortal and spiritual worlds. Among these, there is one location whose sudden disappearance continues to perplex archaeologists, historians, and folklorists alike. An early Celtic ritual site, carefully built, deliberately arranged, and now vanished, leaving scarcely a trace of its former presence. The site was first discovered in the late 19th century during routine agricultural surveys in central Gaul, near the confluence of two small rivers. A series of circular ditches, timber post alignments, and stone settings suggested deliberate construction, echoing patterns observed in other Celtic ceremonial spaces, places meant to host rites of fertility, harvest, or seasonal change. Unlike the later monumental oppida or hill forts that dotted Gaul during the late Iron Age, this site was intimate in scale, but precise in its design. The ditches traced concentric circles, radiating from a central timber platform, while stone markers appeared aligned with the rising and setting sun on solstices and equinoxes. Even in partial excavation, the site exuded a sense of careful planning and spiritual intent, a microcosm of a culture attuned to the movements of the heavens and the cycles of the land. Yet the most striking feature of the site was its sudden abandonment, accompanied by a puzzling lack of evidence for destruction or conquest. In other Celtic settlements, archaeologists can often trace the effects of warfare, natural disaster, or deliberate dismantling. Roofs collapse, pottery shatters, hearths are left cold, and defensive structures bear scars of assault. But here, in this ritual enclave, there is none of that. The timber posts, when carbon dated, show an abrupt cessation of use around 400 BC, yet no traces of fire, erosion, or human conflict accompany this sudden end. Tools, offerings, and even remnants of ritual deposits, pottery fragments, animal bones, and votive objects were left undisturbed, as if the participants had vanished in the middle of a ceremony, leaving the sacred circle precisely as it had been intended. Mainstream explanations often point to environmental changes. Central Gaul, though temperate, is not immune to fluctuations in climate, and small shifts in rainfall patterns or river courses could have made the area temporarily uninhabitable or unsuitable for ritual practice. Perhaps flooding or rising groundwater forced the Celts to abandon the site. Archaeological surveys, however, reveal no significant sediment deposits or signs of prolonged inundation, leaving this theory plausible but unconfirmed. Others suggest socio-political reasons. Perhaps the site fell out of favor as power structures evolved, as local chieftains moved their ceremonial activities elsewhere, or as new trade routes and alliances reshaped the spiritual geography of the region. Yet these explanations, while reasonable, fail to capture the eerie precision of the site's sudden desertion. Further complicating matters are the more speculative possibilities. Some researchers have noted the alignment of the site with rare celestial events, including the appearance of certain comets recorded in Chinese chronicles around the same period. Could the site's abandonment have been linked to an astronomical omen, interpreted as a divine signal to vacate the sacred ground? Other scholars have suggested that the ritual site may have been used for rites involving psychotropic plants or substances, inducing visions in participants. In such a scenario, could a catastrophic misinterpretation of ritual practice or a tragic accident during one such ceremony have prompted the Celts to never return? There is no direct evidence to confirm these ideas, yet the abruptness of the desertion continues to invite questions that extend beyond conventional archaeological reasoning. Even the artifacts themselves deepen the mystery. Votive deposits contained finely carved figurines, small metal objects, and organic materials preserved in the damp soil. Each object bore a deliberate placement, often in relation to the stone markers and post alignments. Some figurines appear humanoid, others animal, and several defy easy categorization, possessing features that suggest symbolic or hybrid meanings. Could these represent deities lost to history, ancestral spirits, or abstract concepts whose understanding has vanished alongside the site? Intriguingly, there are no signs of looting, scavenging, or secondary usage. The objects were left exactly where they were deposited, suggesting that the ritual space retained its sanctity even after the human presence faded. Anthropologists have drawn comparisons with other Celtic ritual sites across Europe, from the famous ring ditches of Britain to the hilltop sanctuaries of the Alps. In each case, the archaeological record hints at continuity, adaptation, and reuse. But in the Gaulish site, the pattern is disrupted. After the abrupt cessation around 400 BC, no subsequent settlement or ceremonial activity appears. The land seems to have been intentionally avoided, returning only to agricultural use centuries later. Was this avoidance a matter of superstition, the memory of a calamity, or perhaps an unrecorded cultural injunction passed orally through generations? The geomorphology of the area offers no answers either. Soil samples, pollen analysis, and river sediment cores reveal no evidence of volcanic activity, disease outbreak, or other catastrophic natural events. Local legends, recorded in medieval chronicles, speak vaguely of silent circles in the forests, where travelers felt sudden chills or unease, yet these accounts are centuries removed and offer no empirical clarity. The combination of environmental stability, lack of human interference, and the intact state of ritual deposits creates a paradox. How does an active, meaningful ceremonial site simply vanish without trace, leaving no physical or narrative explanation behind? Some fringe theories extend the mystery even further. A small group of researchers has speculated on ritual-induced mass disappearance, akin to trance states or collective spiritual experiences, though evidence for such phenomena is necessarily indirect. Others have proposed rare seismic events, minor enough to leave no geological trace but disruptive enough to render the site unsafe, prompting an immediate and permanent evacuation. Even more speculative interpretations, invoking cosmic alignment, unseen forces, or unknown environmental anomalies, persist in popular imagination, fueling the aura of unease surrounding the site. Walking among the faint depressions and remnants of post holes today, one is struck by the intimacy of human activity frozen in time. The Celts who constructed this ritual space were meticulous, their hands precise, their knowledge of astronomy, ecology, and ceremonial symbolism profound. And yet, their sudden disappearance leaves an unsettling silence. Did they leave willingly, guided by foresight, or were they forced by circumstances lost to memory? Were the rituals completed, or was the site abandoned mid-ceremony, a sacred circle left unclosed? The disappearance of this ritual site does more than provoke archaeological curiosity. It invites reflection on the impermanence of human endeavors, even those carefully structured and spiritually charged. Across centuries, generations of ritual, observation, and craftsmanship can be erased not by conquest or natural disaster, but by reasons imperceptible to modern understanding. The Celts, who once stood in these circles chanting, offering, and observing, are gone, and with them, perhaps, a fragment of knowledge forever lost. Yet the echoes remain. The ditches etched into the earth, the stone markers aligned with celestial rhythms, and the carefully deposited offerings that defy explanation. Each element is a whisper from the past, a testament to human intent, and a reminder of the mysteries that persist despite meticulous study. The site's disappearance is not merely a gap in history. It is a challenge to perception, an invitation to wonder how much of human experience lies hidden, waiting to be discovered, or forever beyond reach. Even now, as scholars continue to examine artifacts, geophysical surveys map the terrain, and digital reconstructions attempt to visualize the space in its original context. The absence of human presence lingers more powerfully than any evidence could. How does a culture, capable of extraordinary ingenuity and spiritual insight, simply abandon a place of profound significance? Were the Celts responding to phenomena we can no longer perceive, or did they leave for reasons mundane yet undocumented? And perhaps most hauntingly, how many other ritual sites, aligned with the heavens and imbued with sacred intent, have disappeared entirely, leaving only whispers in soil and shadow to mark their existence? The sudden disappearance of this early Celtic ritual site in Gaul remains an enduring enigma, a fragment of history suspended between observation and imagination, archaeology and mystery. Each step across the empty ditches, each glance at a solitary post hole or carefully arranged stone, invites reflection not only on the past, but on the nature of knowledge itself. In the absence of direct explanation, the mind turns to speculation, to questions that cannot be fully answered, to the silent testament of a culture that sought to connect the human with the divine, and, in doing so, left behind a riddle that continues to captivate all who seek to understand.